Mark Riley of Keystone Automotive is our Grand Marshal for the Lund Look 275.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
And with that command, we are set to go racing here in what is the 15th of 26 races for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series in 1997. Now it's time to take a look at this day's AutoZone race analysis, brought to you by the 1,600 AutoZone stores across America. The best parts in auto parts and the numbers for today's Lund Look 275, the first of 3 road course events, the others being Watkins Glen International and Sears Point International Raceway for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Who's here today? Well, let's check out the starting lineup, 34 strong. Third in points, Joe Ruttman, going for 4 in a row, Ron Hornaday. Fifth a year ago here was Jay Sauter and Mike Skinner in from the Winston Cup Series. Second in points is Jack Sprague and road racing specialist Ron Fellows. He's here. Tom Hubert in his second start in that Dana Dodge, and the former Le Mans pole winner Boris Said. On down to Dave Resendiz, who won at Sears Point a year ago, and birthday boy Rick Crawford celebrated here yesterday. The point leader in the series is Rich Bickle, and Chuck Bound, first road race since 1994. Trans Am regular Dorsey Schrader, another road racing specialist Brian Cunningham. Tony Raines, who Larry McReynolds told you won here in 1995, and for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series and the pole sitter yesterday here, Bobby Hamilton. Mike Bliss, fourth here a year ago, and Californian Bill Sedgwick. Ninth man in points, Rick Corelli, and Mike Wallace from St. Louis, Missouri. Brian Reffner, who was fourth here in an ASA race in 1995, and Kevin Harvick, second race in the 75 truck for him. Idaho's Randy Tolsma, Michigan's Bob Keselowski. Lance Norick is back, still in a Ford. They haven't shifted to a Dodge quite yet. Georgia's Tammy Jo Kirk. Stacy Compton has some good runs going. And Lou Gelati, the road racer from the SCCA World Challenge Championship. Charles Morgan's very talented road racing son, Rob Morgan, and Ohio's Terry Cook. Jimmy Hensley and Kenny Irwin, who's on a road course for the first time in 8 years. Butch Miller, he's gone to a backup truck, and Missouri's Tony Roper. There you have the 32 truck starting field for today's Lund Look 275. The first of a couple of pace laps. We'll be back in a moment. We are at Heartland Park, Topeka, Kansas, and Larry McReynolds, maybe one of the road circuits that a lot of the folks have never really seen before.
Well, Eli, the first 2 years here, the drivers would come off this last corner here and up the front stretch, which is actually the drag strip and the runoff area. They would make this left-hander, and then before they would go this way, which would make up the 1.8-mile course. Now, as they go through this left-hander, they will go up here to turn 2 and make a right-hander, and this makes the course 0.3 of a mile longer, which is 2.1 miles long. Now, should a driver miss his corner here and go straight, as long as he falls in position behind the truck he was running behind, there will be no penalty. Otherwise, if he makes up positions, there'll be a 30-second penalty. Also, as he comes down this straightaway toward turn 5, they're supposed to go through turn 6, turn 7 there. This area is called the Gator Pit. Now, should a driver go straight here, again, as long as he don't make up positions, there's no penalty. Should he make up a position there, though, there's a 15-second penalty.
So that's a layout and a look at a very sprawling and a fairly difficult road course here. Heartland Park, Topeka, as you ride with the Napa Chevrolet truck. Ron Hornaday going for 4 wins in succession here on the circuit. Be quite a show if he could pull it off. Of course, Boris said he is excited in the Federated Auto Parts Ford because Boris, as Larry told you, is a road racer converted to learning the oval courses. Now he's back on his home turf, so to speak, and he says it's nice coming to the track knowing that you have a realistic shot at winning.
Well, he comes in here with a lot of confidence. You know, he's run good all year. Just as we said in the opening, he has knocked on victory lane door, almost won the race at Texas, and now we're to say on his home turf, and he is carrying a lot of confidence coming into today's race.
There's the Team ASE Ford for Mike Bliss, with whom we're riding right now. And Bob Keselowski, the Mopar Performance Dodge, truck number 29, as they now make the turn with a slight elevation change, as you can see. There's not that much variation in elevation, but there is some. Who didn't make the race? Well, there's a list of those who failed to qualify and are on the way home. A lot of road racers: Michael Cohen, John Levy, Chris Horn, Randy Nelson, who tried and did debut in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race a weekend ago at Colorado National, failing to qualify today. There's the pace truck. It is called the Hornet, and that is a basic truck modified by the folks at Lund Industries. And if you're curious about the name of the race, and I know we explained it a year ago, but it's worthy of mention again, the Lund Look 275, well, that is the look of a truck that is basically accessorized by Lund Industries, hence the Lund Look to that Chevy truck. So now you know exactly what the name of the race means. Lund Look 275 kilometers. So we're about set to go racing. Let's quickly check in on pit lane for any last minute updates. Glenn Jarrett.
Well, guys, Stacy Compton just brought his number 86 truck into the pits. He had a problem. There was something catching in the steering. And so they went to work on it, had the hood up. Quick, put me on camera here. This is the screwdriver they were using to adjust that thing with. That may be the biggest screwdriver I've ever seen. I'm going to give it back to somebody who knows how to use it.
Troy Selberg and the fellas working there with Stacy Compton's truck. That was a major league piece of tool right there.
That definitely didn't look like a carburetor tuning screwdriver. He was doing some serious adjustment with that.
Underneath the drag racing bridge, now the field is on their final pace lap. They will circle right there out of turn 12 onto the NHRA drag strip, and that's a very critical point in the track because you go across the burnout area where John Force and Kenny Bernstein and Corey McClinathan and all those guys do their burnouts when the NHRA runs here, and that's a tough place to get a hold of the racetrack.
Well, you can just see the heat right there, and that part of the track has so much rubber on it, it just becomes slick, and you can almost hear the wheels spin as they hit that part of the racetrack.
Chris Morgan from Santa Barbara, California, puts out the green flag, assisted by Butch Lehman, the president and CEO of American Specialty Equipment Corporation. He is our honorary starter today, and we are racing in the Lund Look 275, and here goes Hornaday, 16 truck, trying to grab the lead from Ruttman, couldn't do it.
They're down in the new part of the racetrack here. They'll make the left-hand turn right there. Joe Ruttman looking like he's getting a good bite up off the corner. Those three trucks right there, Eli, the 80, the 16, and the 3, that's the only trucks that's ever led a lap here at Topeka in the first 2 truck races.
Indeed so. And Joe Ruttman for only a single lap at that. This is the first of 81 laps. Most of the drivers say they will shift as many as 12 times a lap here.
And some of the corners are really slow here, Eli, and they'll even use first gear a lot, which is something that not many road course drivers use, for instance, at Watkins Glen or Sears Point, but these guys go all the way to first gear quite a bit.
Another one of the series of S's that leads you back to the Featherlight Trailers Bridge. Then you'll come beneath the bridge as we ride with the Keselowski right here. He follows Brian Refner. You'll then circle back as the point leader is in the wall. Coming off this final turn, you see Bickle right there to the right of your screen. There's Rich Bickle, the series point leader. Everybody goes by, and Rich Bickle obviously able to continue, but in only his 4th visit to a road circuit, Rich Bickle has problems on lap number 1. Let's take a closer look, Larry, at what happened coming off at turn 12.
This is coming off the last corner here. There he said just got sideways with him. I don't know, he might have got a little bit of help from the 55 truck, but just spun around. He went up and just barely nudged the tire wall. He was ready to go about the minute he stopped, but beginning of the race, everybody was stacked up so much there he couldn't get out on the racetrack.
So Rich is now back in 32nd position, just ahead of Lou Gelati and Stacy Compton. As we now go back up front, there's the spread, first to second, Joe Ruttman and Ron Hornaday.
Both of these guys they've always run good on road courses, no matter whether it's been in a truck or in a car. They've always had excellent performances on all of the road courses. There you heard Hornaday downshifting right there. Ruttman beats him up off the corner.
Again through turn number 12 in front of the main control tower. And then they'll swing right here back out onto the drag strip.
This goes from the slowest part of the racetrack to the fastest part. You're all the way in first gear up off that corner. You've got to go through second, third, and fourth. You can hear Hornaday shifting right there all the way up this long drag strip headed toward the left-hander turn 1.
They're now in the runoff area for the NHRA Winston Drag Racers, and here's where that road circuit begins. Then you don't take the first right here, but you do now take the second. Straight ahead is the old track. Here is the first turn of that new section. Let's take a look at Mike Bliss's view of what happened to Bickle, see if he had help.
Looked like, yeah, he come down on the 55 truck right there maybe and just run out of room, and he got him in the left rear and kind of sent him spinning around. I'm not saying that was either truck's fault. It was just close racing in a tight part of the racetrack.
Dorsey Schrader, the Trans Am specialist in that number 55 truck for Tom Gloy Racing. Little damage there on the left front of Tammy Jo Kirk's truck.
These corners get so slow as you get into them. If somebody up front kind of checks up, they almost start stacking up against each other like you would in a heavy traffic jam.
Tammy Jo running in 24th position. She's been here before in the NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Series. Now riding with Bob Keselowski in 22nd. That's Kenny Irwin right behind him.
You hear here, Eli, that he just barely backed to the gas just for 2 or 3 seconds in this part of the S's of the racetrack, just enough to kind of lunge you before it's time to make the next corner.
So 3 laps are in the books now of 81 that make up the Lund Look 275. Joe Ruttman leads, and we're glad you're spending your Sunday with us here on TNN Motorsports. Welcome back, everybody. As the drag race is on for the lead, here goes Hornaday. And Ron Hornaday at lap number 5 will take over the top spot from Joe Ruttman in the Lund Look 275. And he would have made Kenny Bernstein proud. Used the drag strip the way he was supposed to.
He used the drag strip in some of the runoff area.
So Ron Hornaday will take the lead now at lap number 5. Ruttman right behind him there, the LCI truck running in second. Jay Sauter is the number 3 truck. He is in third. Mike Skinner in the 93 running in 4th, and Jack Sprague in the 24 running in 5th. Meanwhile, Tammy Jo Kirk made a stop moments ago. Glenn, I assume it was for that damage we saw on the left front. Glenn apparently checking on another story. We'll be getting back to him in just a moment or so. Tammy Jo did make a stop and then exceeded the speed limit on the pit lane and now finds herself in 34th position, last on the field. Let's check in with Glenn again. We were talking about Tammy Jo Kirk's problems, Glenn.
Yeah, and I was trying to, Eli, but nobody could hear me. She brought the lovable bras truck in. I love to say that. She had that damage on the left front. It was caved in pretty good, but she came in too hot down on pit road. She's pitted way down toward the end of the, just as they start off on the front stretch here, she just came in too hot. They penalized her an additional 15 seconds. They got the damage fixed. No problems there. Also, Lou Gelati was penalized on the first lap. He had to come in for a stop and go penalty. He passed some trucks before he took the green flag.
So you're up to speed now as we work lap number 5 of 81. They have not only expanded the circuit, but they have added the number of laps to the event. Here's a good scramble there for second on back. Sprague in the 24 is 5th. Skinner now yielding the position. So that swaps around there under braking moments ago.
This is a good run for Jack Sprague. He's had a lot of problems here this weekend. He wrecked on Friday, had to go to a backup truck. Got into some oil on the front straightaway yesterday, got in the wall again, and then if that wasn't enough, at the end of the practice yesterday, he tore transmission up. So his guys have definitely worked hard this weekend, but he's up there running in the 5th position.
Butch Miller also went to a backup truck. There's Boris Said in the 44, the road racer, running in 7th spot, the Federated Auto Parts Ford. We're riding with Boris now. Lance Norek making an unscheduled stop and going behind the wall moments ago. He was having trouble shifting as he came past our location moments ago. Transmission problems. And now Joe Ruttman pulls off the course. Joe Ruttman is coming off turn 12 and heading down the pit lane. So there he is, the man who led the first 4 laps, our pole sitter, makes an unscheduled stop. He has other company joining him on pit road as well. We'll see exactly what the problem is as the Roush crew goes to work.
You know what I think they're doing here, Eli?
I know what they're doing.
It's exactly. This first segment leading to halfway is 42 laps. There was a lot of trucks that didn't think they could make it. So what they're doing, they're taking advantage here, going ahead and topping this truck off early. If they get a caution and a lot of the trucks come in, Joe's full of fuel and he's back at the front of the field. That's his teammate, Chuck Bound, that has come in as well.
And the reason a lot of this is going on, Glenn, I guess, is because of what Sammy Shoemate, the crew chief, did yesterday in the All-Pro Series race, helping Steve Christian to an impressive win.
I got to feel like you're exactly right, Eli. These guys saw that, and they know that that's the best strategy on the road course. We talked about it yesterday. We're in Ron Hornaday's pit right now. He's coming in this lap for a gas and go. Very same reason. If they can catch a caution, all the other guys got a pit behind them. They got track position, and that is so important. Can't tell you how important it is on a road course.
You folks also got a quick look at Tom Hubert seconds ago, doing a little agricultural racing.
Hornaday, he's on pit road.
Here he comes. He's on the pit lane now. You enter pit road before you even go beneath that Featherlight Bridge that you've been seeing. So the leader is now Jay Sauter, who'll take over the top spot.
And again, for the fans at home, I'm sure you're wondering, gosh, they've only run 6 or 7 laps of this race. Why are they already pitting for fuel? And I just want to iterate, the first segment's 42 laps. They don't think they could go the distance, so they're going to come in early, get those trucks topped off of fuel. The only downside to this is if there's some trucks that can go the distance, then you're way behind those trucks.
Well, we'll all find out together as we're still early in this event. 7 laps are complete. Jay Sauter is now the new leader. Right there, your first and second place trucks. Jack Sprague right behind. Second place, there are the race leaders. 93, Mike Skinner. 24, Jack Sprague. That change just took place on the racetrack. When Jay Sauter pitted at lap number 7, Jack Sprague inherited the lead. Then out on the course itself in turn number 7, Skinner made the move around Jack Sprague. So it's Skinner, Sprague, Boris Said, Ron Fellows, and Rick Crawford. Over the last number of moments, we have seen pit stops for Mike Bliss. We told you Sauter, Bill Sedgwick has been in, Kenny Irwin has been in. Others making their pit stops now. Mike Wallace has stopped for fuel. Again, all of this to try and work race strategy in your favor as Boris Said tries to grab a piece of second.
This is over in the turn 8 and 9 area, what we call the Gator Pit. And as they come off the corner there, looks like Boris has the line.
Just now drags him into the corner. So swap things around right there. Boris in second. Oh, you see that?
Yeah, I think that's some brake smoke. Jack really getting on those brakes hard. And, you know, if you do that too many times, it could flat spot those tires. And these tires have got to go a long way. You're seeing a lot of it every corner. I saw it earlier, I thought. So I don't know if he's got a brake problem, but he sure is smoking them quite a bit.
If he doesn't now, he may well shortly. Ron Fellows is right behind him. Glenn Jarrett, a lot of interesting pit strategy.
Yeah, there is, Eli, and you can see the shifter here. When Jay Sauter came in, you see they've got the knob off the end of it. They had to take it off. The one in the truck came off. He's having to use his hand on top of this to shift. That is not comfortable. Gas and go for him. Ron Hornaday, when he came in a while ago, they only put 5 seconds worth of fuel in the truck. However, he stalled the truck trying to get out of the pit, so it turned into a 10 seconds. Here's the smartest guy down here right now. Look at this guy. He's right in front of the fan. Also, you mentioned Lance Norris was having problems shifting. He has lost 3rd gear in his truck, and they're trying to repair that.
So transmission problems there, and that really typifies the weekend. The heat here in Topeka has been unbearable. The temperatures have been in 100, 101, 102, 103 degrees. Today they were saying it's only going to be 100, and with the humidity down just a tick, it'll only feel like 105. The heat index the last few days has been 112, 114. It has not been terribly pleasant at times.
That's probably about 130 or 40 degrees inside those race trucks right there, and probably about 20 more degrees hotter on the racetrack itself.
The folks from Napa bringing you the field standings here today. At Napa, we keep America running, and they've got that banner across the top of the screen to let you know where your favorites are. You see Boris Said in second, and there is Boris right now as he makes that swing around in front of the main control tower for the NHRA drag racing through the burnout area. He has lane choice. He's just going to go right down the middle and take a little bit each.
know, some of these guys felt like they could make it the distance on fuel, but they needed a few caution laps to do that. And so far, we've been caution-free after 11 laps. So you almost wonder, these guys making the commitment to go this long on fuel and not stopping early, they maybe have already committed themselves to try to go the distance.
Again, this race is run in 2 halves, remember. There is a Gatorade Front Runner Award at the end of the first half of $1,000.
Rick Crawford getting a little crossed up there, getting in the corner.
First time here in a truck. Crawford was here last year in the NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Series race. As a matter of fact, in this weekend a year ago, he was the point leader in the All-Pro Series.
Jack Sprague really getting up on those rumple strips and stirring up the dust. Hadn't seen any more brake smoke here the last few corners, so maybe he realized he needed to slow down just a little bit and quit entering them corners so hard.
Over the rumble strips for some. Now behind them, you see, you've got different styles. You had Ron Fellows in the 48, the road racer, who avoids the rumble strips. Now he goes off towards pit road.
Rick Crawford as well entering pit road.
So these guys are on the pit lane. Fellows who compete. Oh, and
Jack
Sprague is off the course.
racetrack.
As he swung out onto the drag strip, Jack just missed, and he's going to take a side entrance onto pit road. So Jack Sprague right there. You unfortunately didn't see what happened, and maybe we'll be able to take a look.
He's got
shortly.
a flat tire. That's the reason he had to find him away on the pit road, and
right
that was
front.
pretty quick thinking there, because looks like somebody just forgot to put the concrete barrier there today.
He found an opening and went right down the pit lane.
Now they'll only be able to change that one tire there, because they only have one other set of tires. But if a tire's flat like that right front, then you can come in and change that tire, and he's away. But he's going to lose a lot of ground here.
If you just come in and change tires because you want to, then it's a 5-lap penalty per tire change. You say, hey, our tires aren't working, I want 4 newies. God bless you, but you're 20 laps down. You know, so that's how it works in this series. Back up front, you're running with second place Boris Said. Right ahead of him, that red truck. That is Mike Skinner. Skinner earned 8 wins in the series in 1995 as the series champion.
A little bit of brake smoke out of Mike's truck there. This is only Mike's second truck race this year. He run earlier at Homestead, and he's going to also be in a truck next week at Raceway Park. A little bit of weaving coming down the drag strip there. Almost looks like looking down the straightaway at Pocono.
Sure does. And you see again the heat just radiating up off the ground here.
Mike told me that they was pulling a little bit higher rear end gear than maybe some of the other trucks. And, you know, a little bit higher gear can help the fuel mileage just a little bit. And in the case of almost being able to make it, just a little bit could mean a lot here.
Mike Skinner welcoming himself back to the series. Everybody happy to see him. But it was interesting. I asked him after a taste of Winston Cup, what's it like coming back to race the trucks here this weekend?
Well, I think he comes here, you know, and there's not a lot of pressure.
Well, he won Tucson, Arizona. He won Colorado. He wins in Kansas. 3 in a row for Mike Skinner.
I really enjoyed the trucks, and I'm not through truck racing. I'm going to race trucks some more. I've got a son that I'm trying to move up into the truck ranks, and I miss the guys over there. So when we get an opportunity to go back and race with them, it's fun. And going over there and not being in a point situation is going to be even fun.
Thoughts of Mike Skinner, who is here this weekend, driving truck number 93. That's the same Lumar Windows Chevy truck that he drove to Homestead's 4th place finish back in March. That's Dana Dorman's bunch who built that truck. Kevin Hamlin is here as crew chief for the weekend. Barry Owen also here. They've got the team based out of Barry's shops up there in the Carolinas. Just ahead now, that's Rob Morgan in the 65 truck. Rob is a noted road racer, making a venture here. His dad, Charles Morgan, you might know the name if you have followed IMSA racing, or professional sports car as they now call the circuit. They've run together successfully at the Rolex 24, the 24 Hours of Daytona. but goes a lap down here in a very unusual vehicle for Rob Morgan to be driving in. Just going to be a bit of a learning curve. We are 14 laps complete. 81 making up the distance. Mike Skinner took the lead at lap number 9. Caution out as you see Chris Morgan waving that caution flag. Sedgwick just came out of turn 12, and all of a sudden left rear of the truck began to erupt in a blaze of flame. It very quickly extinguished itself, although Sedgwick's truck has left a trail of fluid behind it, and clearly you can see Bill is just fine. But a scary moment. He just came out of turn 12, and big old flames shot from behind the Sedgwick truck. Let's see if we can see exactly what happened. He was just minding his own business, best we could tell. He goes wide.
Come off the last corner there, and you don't really see what the problem was.
The flame is on the left rear, shooting out that side. You can see where the smoke is, obviously.
As much liquid is put down, you almost think that maybe an oil tank got busted or something like that, because turn 12 in the last corner is just full of oil. A lot of liquid put down there. Now, this caution is not good for Boris Said. By my calculations, he's one of the few leaders, or the only leader, that had not pitted. Mike Skinner just had pitted. They kept Mike in the pits an awfully long time, about 10 to 11 seconds, and I don't know that they needed to hold him that long compared to Ron Hornaday for about 5 seconds. But now the question is, can these caution laps buy Boris the laps he needs to not stop for fuel? Because if he stops, he's going to be deep in the field here on lap 17.
So caution on the speedway, a full course caution for the very first time. And now it's time to take a look at this week's Dodge Innovation in Motion and see how Jimmy Hensley deals with the heat here in Topeka, Kansas.
When the truck teams come to Heartland Park in the middle of July, we face some of the hottest weather we face any time during the year. One of the primary considerations for all the teams, how to keep the driver cool. Dodge driver Jimmy Hensley's crew has come up with a very innovative idea, a way to keep him cool. Jimmy, tell us about it.
Well, this 102-degree heat's kind of got us concerned, for the race Sunday, Glenn. What we're doing, we're taking the outside air, which is, 102 degrees plus, take it through a fan, reduce it down into a smaller hose, go through a cooler with a coil in the bottom, which is filled with ice. That cools the air. The smaller hose comes out of the other side, goes into my helmet, and gives me a lot cooler air, and therefore should make my performance better.
As I said, one of the primary considerations is keep that driver cool. Take a look right here. This is a spare cooler that they built, a backup cooler. The air is forced through these pipes in here. This is all filled with ice. Cold water simply blows cool air in. Jimmy keeps him as cool-headed as long as possible.
And that's how they deal with the heat here in Topeka. You see Bill Sedgwick still looking to see what's amiss with the truck, as Boris Said leads under caution. We continue under caution here at Heartland Park in Topeka. A chance for us to remind you about the official destination of NASCAR, Opryland, USA in Nashville, Tennessee. Want to take the family? It's a great trip. Give that phone number a call, 615-889-6611. They'll answer your questions Monday through Friday. And while you've got a chance, you might want to race into the all-new and official stores of NASCAR. Visit NASCAR Thunder locations, now open in all of those cities you see. And you can also check the website, www.country.com, and get all the information about NASCAR Thunder, the official store of NASCAR. Warm day here at Heartland Park in Topeka. Temperature at 100 degrees. Feels like 105. Going to be tough on the cooling system. Not a whole lot of grill space, although more than, I guess, on a race car, Larry, but it's still got to be a handful in the heat of this Midwest.
In this much heat, you've got to open a lot of the front end. See, there's no tape at all on the front end of that truck. Now, for qualifying, these guys will tape up just as much as they can because it really reduces the drag for these trucks to go down these long straightaways, and also put some downforce in the front of the truck. When you open them up, you have to do it for the heat. It makes the drag go up and actually takes some downforce away, which you have to work on the truck to turn a little better.
As a matter of fact, our AutoZone Tech Fact today is with Barry Dodson, who spent some time explaining how to try and keep the truck cool in this high humidity.
At a lot of tracks in Craftsman Truck Series, we don't get a lot of practice. We try to utilize what practice we get to try to get ready to qualify and be up front. To do that, you have to have the truck taped up pretty heavily, so it wants to run hot. Well, here's how you fix that. It's with this baby right here. It's built by CNR out of Indianapolis. It's just another radiator just like we have in the truck, except this baby's filled up with ice water. Let me show you how it works. Mike comes in, we plug it in right here to the quick coupler. It sends ice cold water all through the system, pushes the hot water back out here, it goes back through the radiator and recirculates it. We can be back on the track in just a couple minutes.
Just some more of the technology involved in the world of NASCAR racing. There you see the cleanup continuing to Bill Sedgwick's truck. They have a good bit of fluid that has been leaking from the rear of the vehicle. They have put down a lot of Speedy Dry and continue. Here comes the Speedy Dry truck again. They're even having to do it by hand because of the volume of the fluid. So we stay under caution with Boris Said, the leader. Field now set to go green. Cleanup is wrapping up. That machine, that cleanup truck backing up to the head end of the drag strip. And the green is in the air. Boris Said with Ron Hornaday trying to take the top spot away.
Eli, we run 3 caution laps, and normally on a road course, 3 caution laps is equivalent to about 1.5 green laps. So obviously by Boris Said and his team electing not to pit, they're making the statement, guys, we think we can go the distance. On a road course, you normally get worse fuel mileage than you do on an oval. It's no different in your passenger car. When you're out on the highway and you're consistent with your speed, your fuel mileage is a lot better than when you're around town on and off the gas, which these trucks are a lot here at this road course.
Glenn, has Boris said anything about strategy?
Boris Said, crew chief said, which is Jay Smith, told me, quote, unquote, we ain't pitting, man. We're not coming in. We can make it the rest of the way thanks to that caution. I said, what do you do if you run out of gas? He said, we get somebody to push him around. So they are definitely not going to pit. Update on some of the things going on down here. We saw Mike Wallace in. They got a brake problem, front brake problem. They keep working on that. Also, Jack Sprague has reported now he has a right front rubbing, so he's got a little problem too. But Boris said he's staying out.
He might have even exclaimed that. You never know. Underneath the bridge, back out onto the drag strip here off this final turn. It'll be lap number 21 as they come back to start finish of 81 that are being run here today. Riding with Mike Bliss, he's in 5th now, and you see how he has worked forward, then dropped back with his pit stop, and then moved back towards the front. MCI bringing you NASCAR timing and scoring across the top of the screen. So you'll know how your favorites are doing. Lance Norrick, Ron Fellows, Bill Sedgwick in the garage area right now. Everybody else still out there and running. Skinner, 3 truck, that's Sauter. Dave Resendi's moving to the front. He's in 7th now. Remember, he won the road course race at Sears Point. 55, Dorsey Schrader. 29, Keselowski, Kenny Irwin. 43 is Jimmy Hensley. Chuck Bound, who's made a couple of pit stops. 1 is Bobby Hamilton, visiting from the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. He was the Busch pole sitter here yesterday in the Slim Jim All-Pro Series race.
Goodyear's brought a really good tire here, Eli. This is the same tire that the Winston Cup cars run at Sonoma, and it really has a lot of staying power. Even though this track gets really hot and slick, the times don't really fall off that much. They was off right away from the beginning of the race, actually about 2 to 3 seconds off what they qualified, but it seems like they kind of stay there even many laps into the race.
Good battle there. You saw Rick Crawford just to the right there in that blue truck. Jay Sauter in the 3. The 35, that green and yellow truck, that's Dave Resendiz. You're looking there at 5th, 6th, and 7th. Tony Raines in the 19 truck. He is in the 8th spot. And 1 truck spins here at the entrance. That's Chuck Bound. Chuck Bound, who came off turn 12, spun as he went towards that burnout area on the drag strip. And now manages to continue away in the Exide truck number 99. Chuck running in 27th position. Let's see if we can figure out exactly what happened.
Coming off the last corner there, got up on those ruffle strips and just maybe was too far on them and was actually part on the rumple strips, part on the slick part of the racetrack, and it just come around on him. Got away. A little bit of damage to the left rear there, but I don't think anything that really will affect the truck. Spins it around real quickly and gets going.
Good bit of damage, though, you see there at the left rear of the Exide Ford. First road race for Chuck in a couple of years. He ran a number of West Coast road races and even ran at the old Briar Motorsports Park, which is now where the Loudon, New Hampshire International Speedway is, when Chuck was up in that part of the country. And it's been a while for him on the road circuits. Meanwhile, the battle for the lead up front has really tightened up again. It's coming right at you through the heat waves of this Sunday afternoon in Topeka. Hornaday looking, but can't get the jump on Boris Said.
Boris's truck really runs good down at the end of that long drag strip, the end of the front straightaway.
Boris doesn't show a ton of emotion, but all week long, I happened to talk to him on Tuesday from out in California, and he said, man, these days aren't going by quickly enough till I can get back to the road course.
Well, you know, even way back when it was announced he was going to drive this truck at the beginning of the year, I think probably the first thing that popped in everybody's mind is, heck, these trucks go to 3 road courses, and we're sure Boris is going to be tough. And again, I think he has surprised people at his performance on the ovals.
He really has. He's learned. Well, he's a good, talented race driver, no doubt about it. And he's really picked up the pace on the ovals nicely. Glenn, what are you hearing about Chuck Bound's problems? How significant are they?
I think it's mostly sheet metal, Eli. They've been talking about bringing him in, but Chuck says the truck's okay. I just happen to be looking right at that. He got in that corner starting off down the drag strip there, and he got a little bit squirrely. Jack Sprague was right behind him, had nowhere to go, and he got into Chuck. That's what spun him around. And if you look at if you can see next time we show it, the damage on the left rear of Chuck's truck, I think that came from the contact with Sprague, but I don't believe it was Jack's fault. Just 2 guys at the same place. Chuck had a little problem there.
Chuck in 27th position right now. Meanwhile, up front, here goes Hornaday. Gets a jump this time midway down the drag strip, and he'll grab the lead from Boris Said.
Just pulled out, went by him on the inside down that long drag strip, pulled back in line before they even got to turn 1.
So for the second time today, Ron Hornaday will take the lead. Let's see if Boris can hang with him. You've got Mike Skinner in the 93 truck right behind. These vehicles take abuse on a road course.
It's hard on a lot of things, hard on a lot of the suspension, ball joints, panhard bars. We saw some cars yesterday in that race break some panhard bars. It's just because the truck is never loaded one direction. It's back and forth across the rumple strips. Pretty much after a road race, even if you win the race, you pretty much got to go back and throw most of the suspension parts away.
And this is kind of like a left-handed road course anyway, more so than some of the others around the country, Glenn. It really is a handful for the guys that you're dealing with down there on pit road.
Oh, it is, Eli. It's kept them working hard all week long. We did an update a while ago that Butch Miller has brought his truck in behind the wall. He's had a terrible week, crashed the primary truck. Somebody spun in front of him. He had to take to the dirt and hit the wall, and now they've got a transmission problem. Larry, I got a question about what you're talking about. Another thing, in addition to suspension, is what the engine goes through at a place like this, running so slow and then so fast. It really goes through its complete range of emotions, if you will, and you can have some valve train problems if you're not careful.
Well, it really is hard on valves, and again, the downshifting and upshifting. You know, these trucks have rev limiters in them, which actually cuts the cylinders out if you over rev them, but still, if you over rev them too fast, it'll turn the RPMs up, and it's pretty much a motorman's nightmare. There you see Mike Skinner. He's moved around Boris Said into 2nd place.
Boris is now running in 3rd. Mike Bliss is 4th. Rick Crawford is running in 5th as we ride with Bliss. 25 of 81 laps complete. Back with you, the Lund Look 275 is now under caution. Why? Because there's one truck right there pointed the wrong way. That's Brian Reffner.
Brian got a little out of shape over there in turn 10 and never did get it refired, and so he may have something transmission-wise or engine-wise that's caused him to be in that position. He's still sitting in the truck. They're waiting to get him out of the way there.
He ran 4th here in 1995 in an American Speed Association race. But today it's not going to be quite as strong a day. Tough break for Brian Reffner. Meanwhile, Boris said over the last lap or so has dropped a couple 3 positions. Glenn, are they concerned? Are they saying anything on pit road?
Oh, absolutely, Eli. There's a little problem. Jay Smith, the crew chief's talking to him right now, and Jay, Boris seems to have dropped off. What's the problem?
Don't really know what it is. The motor's been skipping pretty much all the way around the racetrack. He says he's killing them guys in the corner, but it won't run down the straightaways, and we're not real sure what it is. We're going to try some stuff on the carburetor, change a battery, and a few other little things, but we really don't know what it is.
This caution helps, but you're still sure you can go all the way this half?
We're not pitting.
That doesn't mean he's sure, it just means he's not pitting.
So that's the strategy as it unfolds. Tough break for Boris. Remember, you got to have the strength on the straightaway here because the front stretch, the drag strip and the runoff area, 2,484 feet. The back stretch, 1,442 feet. So you've got to have it dialed in all the way around. And certainly number 16 truck does. That is Ron Hornaday. A streak of races began with the win at Bristol Motor Speedway. He led every single lap. 2 weeks later, he went to victory lane at the famed Milwaukee Mile. The next week, Louisville, Hornaday dipped under Mike Bliss, took the checkered flag, and he had won 3 of his last 4. Then last week, his wife was looking on in Colorado. Lindy saw Ron take his 3rd straight victory and a Craftsman Truck Series record 4 wins out of 5 races.
Nothing like momentum.
Today. Got that right.
Nothing like momentum. And, you know, they really got it going right now. And he's sitting there right up at the front again today. So, and Ron's always been tough on these road courses. So I'd say he stands as good a chance as any of getting those 4 wins in a row. If
I may, for a moment, shifting gears, if you will, the Brickyard 400 coming up next weekend. And, of course, everybody knows, Larry, you are the crew chief for Dale Earnhardt. You guys were there testing. How'd things go? What's the thought process for next weekend?
Well, with both of our cars, Earnhardt and Skinner, the 3 and the 31, we spent 5 days total there testing. Had Dave Marcus helping us out, Bobby Hillen doing some engine stuff for us. Had a good test. And, you know, we feel like with the 3 Brickyards that's been run, Dale Earnhardt, Richard Childress, and Larry McReynolds, we carry a lot of success into there. We like to win the first Brickyard with Ernie before the cut tire. Dale did win the 2nd Brickyard, and then last year with the Robert Yates cars, Dale Jarrett and Ernie Irvin, we had the 1-2 punch. So maybe we can carry our momentum into the Brickyard.
Oh, Dave Marcus is something when he tests a car, isn't it?
He's got a great feel for a race car, and it really gives you good feedback, and he's really been a lot of help to the Goodwrench team.
Here we go now for the restart. The restart spot is where they show that scoreboard where they give you the results of the drag racing events. We'll ride with Mike Bliss here. As soon as they get to that scoreboard area, they are free to go.
Hornaday gets that normal restart, but looked like Skinner kept pace with him just a little bit, as well as Mike Bliss as they downshift headed into turn 1 here.
Hornaday, Skinner, and the man with whom we are riding, Mike Bliss.
28 laps into this race, you heard Mike Bliss as he got back to the throttle. He wasn't able to just completely nail it. He kind of had to feather into it. You have to drive these road courses with the throttle as well as the steering wheel.
There's Boris Said. There's Boris Said. He's got major problems now off the pace. Everybody is going by Boris Said. It is an extremely hot day today. Temperature again over 100. High humidity. Glenn, any problems on the pit lane as far as guys checking in as to how they're going to feel?
Oh, yeah, Eli. Brian Cunningham, driving the number 57 truck, has had Doug George standing by to relieve him. Doug has gotten in the truck. Brian collapsed from the heat. He has been sick. He's had some kind of virus, and it finally caught up with him. Meanwhile, I'm in the back of Rich Bickle's pits right here. These guys are working hard to get cold towels, ice packs, and ice water ready for Rich at halftime. They're talking more about what they're going to do to keep him cool than they are what they're going to do to change on the truck. Meanwhile, we're going to go down now, check on Boris Said. I'll get right back to you.
So that's the update there. There is the Cunningham truck now with Doug George at the wheel. So again, we don't want to overstate the fact because the NASCAR Winston Cup teams run in 100-degree temperature at Daytona when you're there for the Pepsi 400. But this weekend, there's absolutely been no break whatsoever. Temperatures over 100, high humidity. Barely a cloud in the sky. As you see overhead, it's totally pristine and blue. There's very little area to hide.
Saw Mike Skinner locking that right front up there as he went off in the corner, locking those brakes up. Eli, there's several things. There you see Boris said he's in the pits, and they're jacking the rear end up. He may have tore a gear up of something. It looked like he just all of a sudden was off the pace.
And that's normally what you look for when you jack up the rear of a race vehicle, something in the rear end, obviously.
They're trying to see you run a ratchet rear end here, and what they're trying to do now, they're trying to see if both wheels is pulling.
Glenn, what can you tell from down there?
Exactly what Larry's talking about. They got a rear gearing problem, and you're right, Larry. They got it jacked up trying to spin both tires. When Boris came in, he didn't cut it off. It cut off on its own because of something in the gearing. He couldn't stop it, couldn't control it. Now they're going to work on the axle cap. He may have a broken axle. I don't know. But they're definitely got a rear gearing problem. They're going to have to put him behind the wall, check it out. Tough break.
You know, we talked about how hard this racetrack is on the engines and transmissions. It's hard on all of the drivetrain, the dry shaft, and can be very hard on axles. You know, the RPMs are so low, and then all of a sudden you're back to the gas, really turning the RPMs up. That can twist one of those axles right in two.
So Boris said, going behind the wall, a big spin here. Tom Hubert coming back out into the drag strip area. There he is in the Dana Dodge up against the tire barrier. Now there can be caution in that one corner only. You don't have to have a full course yellow. They'll wait and see whether Hubert can get that Dana Dodge for Kurt Rohrig going again. We'll see exactly what happened. Watch.
He come off in the last corner and looked like it just come around with him, but an awful lot of smoke, so he may have had a transmission or an engine problem.
And we've got a full course yellow. It doesn't look as though Bobby Hamilton helped him from the rear. It was tough to tell. Just tough. Bobby's there in that number 1 truck. But we are going to a full course yellow here at lap number 30 for the Dana Dodge. The leader is Ron Hornaday. Under caution, brought out when Tom Hubert spun the Dana Dodge off turn 12. We ride with Jimmy Hensley, and let's check in with Glenn Jarrett.
And guys, they have pulled Boris Said's truck behind the wall here. Just as we speculated, axle problem. This is the one that came out. It's not supposed to look like that. It's supposed to be much longer. Now they got a problem getting that other piece out of the center section. Meanwhile, Boris sitting here getting several drinks of cold water. Man, that thing just let go on you all at once. That's too bad. You had a great truck.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, all the guys at Federated Auto Parts and 1-800 Collect gave me a really good truck today, and I just appreciate their support. Ernie back at home told me to be patient, and I was, but we had a really good truck. Fortunately, we had a little bit of miss, so we were just kind of conserving the gas till halftime. You know, we definitely had the fastest truck out there. You know, unfortunately, we broke an axle under the yellow, and, you know, that's just the unfortunate part of racing. It's pretty hot out here, but the track's a lot of fun. I'm just drinking plenty of Cytomax. Stuff keeps you cool.
Well, you know, he looks pretty cool for a guy that's been out there in the heat of battle. Doesn't look near as hot and worn out as I thought he would be, but they're going to get the thing fixed and get him back out there.
There you see Tom Hubert's truck being pushed back towards the garage and pit area. Again, if you're just tuning in, here's why we are under caution for the 3rd time today.
Here they come down underneath the bridge. You see some smoke coming out of Tom Hubert's truck right there, and again, I almost get the feeling that something let go on that truck. A lot of smoke out of it, so I don't think it was just that it got away from him.
Still couldn't tell whether he and Bobby Hamilton made contact or not. We'll just have to wait and find out as we talk to the fellows who were involved there. Got to tip the hat to Tony Raines in the number 19 truck, that Pennzoil machine, running right there in 5th spot. And Larry, that's one of the guys you talked about in the pre-race segment today, who is a former winner here and could do well, and indeed he is.
Well, you know, again, he's being patient, and that's what you got to do at a road course. And we always have had a theory about road racing. If you stay on the racetrack and nothing breaks and you make decent calls in the pits, you can finish in the top 5 normally at a road race. And they're just biding their time, quietly have worked their way into 5th position. Know they got a lot of laps to go here and just need to be there at the end.
We had also mentioned earlier in our telecast about Kenny Irwin. It was during our starting lineup area. We said it's his first road race in 8 years, and there is the Ray Bestis truck for Kenny Irwin. Started 32nd, currently being shown in 15th spot. So he's had himself a very solid run going for the Cintas Rookie of the Year honors here on the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series.
Actually had to use a provisional spot, an owner's provisional to get in. A little bit of damage on the right rear there. Don't know that it'll cause any harm to the performance, and don't look like it's near the tire rubbing or anything. So, again, he just needs to be patient, keep working his way to the front, and see what happens here near the end.
Next week, this series is going to Indianapolis Raceway Park. The trucks will be running there on Thursday evening. And have you seen whose names are on the entry list for next week?
Quite a number of drivers are going to show up there. That's pretty normal for Indianapolis.
Eliseo Salazar has tendered an entry. The great ASA standout Gary St. Amant has tendered an entry. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how some of these fellows will be getting into a truck for a very first time, particularly after the high-powered, lower-weight IRL or Indy cars. See how they do next weekend.
I'm sure the biggest, toughest job will be when they first get there is trying to make the show. That's going to be the toughest part.
Hornaday the leader as we get set to go back to green. Mike Skinner is second. Mike Bliss is third. Rick Crawford will restart in fourth. Tony Raines fifth. Kevin Harvick, a good run. He's in sixth. Joe Ruttman back up to seventh. He was the very first truck to pit for the early fuel stop back on lap 6. Joe Ruttman is now in seventh. Jay Sauter is eighth. Dave Resendiz is ninth. Rick Corelli will restart 10th. Rich Bickle 11th. Dorsey Schrader running well in 12th. Randy Tolsma in 13th. Jack Sprague is 14th. Kenny Irwin is 15th. 16th is Bobby Hamilton. Bob Keselowski is 17th. Jimmy Hensley will go 18th. And that is the full list of the trucks currently on the lead lap.
Sure, during this caution period, Eli, the drivers have really talked to their crew chiefs about what their trucks are doing. They've run 32 laps, coming to lap 33, about 9 laps to the halfway. They got to start thinking about what kind of adjustments they can make to be on top of it for that last run.
The Lund Look 275 back under green. Look at Joe Ruttman gets around Harvick on the quick jump. That's that yellow LCI truck. Moves in and around Crawford as well. Nice jump there for Joe. Widening now with Mike Bliss. Bliss is in third. Well, that was too good of a restart for Joe Ruttman. They're going to have to black flag him for jumping the restart, and around goes Harvick. That's in the new section of the course, and around he went. Spears Manufacturing making a driver change a couple of weeks ago. Dan Press got out of the truck, and Harvick took over, effective with the race last week in Colorado. Well, this is going to be a crusher for Ruttman, but again, everything will tighten up at halfway, so it's not a devastating break for Joe Ruttman, but he'll go from fourth all the way to the back of the field. Here's Harvick's spin again.
Just might have got a little bit of help there from the back as they was going in that turn. I think that's Rick Corelli there behind him. He may have got a little bit of help. Don't look like the truck ever stalled out on him. Just again, couldn't get back in position on the racetrack for all the trucks coming.
And the leader is Ron Hornaday. Took the top spot at lap 24. We're at lap 33, nearing halfway. Joe Ruttman just made his stop-and-go penalty, and the stop is complete. You see Dave Resendiz right behind, having made a pit stop as well. And just clarifying that very much like Winston Cup Racing, as you there see Resendiz, you not only can't pass, you can pass in one direction, Larry. You can't pass in another, however, on a restart.
Well, once the green flag is displayed, even if you have not crossed the start-finish line, you can pass to the right-hand side. Now, obviously, when you cross the start-finish line, you can pass, you're back to racing.
Sure.
But you can't pass anyone to that green flag comes out, and you can't pass anyone to the left. And Joe was all the way down against the left side of the drag strip, and NASCAR caught it and brought him in for a stop-and-go. He won't go a lap down, but the thing about it was 6 laps to the halfway, he's got a lot of ground to make up.
There you see the battle up front. Hornaday, the leader. Then Skinner, the 93. You're riding with third place Mike Bliss. You can also see the tires starting to give up just a wee bit at this late stage of the first half.
They've run 36 laps, and about 31 of them have been green flag laps. And again, all of the truck races are tire management. You don't have the luxury like us in Winston Cup. Every time the yellow flag flies, you come in and get 4 more Goodyears. These guys have to know how to manage their tires, and you can't abuse these tires. If you ever abuse them, their history, you get to put 4 more on.
At this point, they are showing a grand total of 14 trucks on the lead lap as we near halfway at beautiful Heartland Park, Topeka, Kansas. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series is at Heartland Park in Topeka, Kansas, and our point standings update is brought to you by Auto Vent Shade, the original vent visor, the most practical accessory for your truck. And that's how the numbers look going into today's Lund Look 275. There's the top 10, including Kenny Irwin, who also leads the Cintas Rookie of the Year battle. On the racetrack now, good battle for third. There is second place Skinner, Bliss is third, and Rick Crawford in fourth. Bliss had made a bid there, but couldn't quite make the move on Skinner.
And Rick Crawford, he had been all over the, I guess what would you call it, the rear tailgate.
Exactly.
Of Mike Bliss's truck, and lost a little ground when he didn't quite clear him getting into turn one.
Boris said after the problems to the rear of the truck, he has now returned. So if you're following his fortunes, Boris back on the racetrack. There he comes now, but he finds himself 4 laps down. Not quite as disastrous as it could have been.
Well, most of their repair work was done during the caution,
right.
So that enabled
there
them
goes
to
second place Skinner. And caution is on the speedway, a full course yellow. A full course yellow being put out at turn 10. Skinner able to continue, but he brings out the full course yellow. He was running in second spot. He gets back in line in 12th, just ahead of Jimmy Hensley, who was running 13th.
He was fortunate, the kind of ride he took, that he didn't lose any more positions than he did.
So our fourth caution of the afternoon comes out as Mike Skinner, returning to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. The reason they were so quick with that caution too is that there is a report from an observer that there is a streak of oil in turn 10 over which Skinner went, and that sent the truck looping. So they are deciding to put out the caution and take a look right through that area, turn 10. Of course, the black area, that's the groove, and there is some sealer that you see there, but at the same time, observers who are right on top of the speedway say there is a streak of oil, and better to be safe than sorry.
NASCAR has spotters all around the racetrack, particularly in the corners, and that's their job, is to watch the racetrack to see if any debris or oil or water or anything's put down.
Watch what happens here as we ride with Mike Bliss, and Skinner's right ahead of him.
Sorry, the tail end of the truck started really moving around there like he did get in some liquid or something, like it just got away from him. It didn't just come around like it got loose with him. It's like maybe his rear tires was in some oil or liquid.
Down on the pit lane right now, Rob Morgan has the hood up. And it looks as though they're also working in the driver's compartment. Oh, there's Morgan right there. There's Morgan being helped out of the truck, lying down or being bathed in ice water. And we'll have Glenn update us quickly as to who it was that climbed in. Again, folks, not to overstate it, temperatures here, even with the breeze that you can see blowing and rustling everybody's hair, temperatures over 100 degrees. The humidity makes it feel a good bit warmer than that, and it's been that way all weekend long. There's the breeze and the umbrellas, too, that help shade some folks here in the heartland of America. Road racing specialists, there's Dorsey Schrader first on that list, an 8th spot. Bobby Hamilton, Mike Skinner. Lou Gelati is in there in 19th. Dave Rezendes, that is your top 20 at the moment as we work here at the halfway point. Field getting the 1 to go signal right now, and they get that at turn number 9. So the next time they come towards start finish, they will be going racing.
You saw Joe Ruttman in 18th after that stop and go penalty, so he's got a lot of ground to make up. And there you see all these trucks with their fresh Goodyear tires weaving back and forth, trying to work them in before we go back racing.
Again, the point standings, Rich Bickle by 102 on Jack Sprague. Joe Ruttman, then Hornaday and Mike Bliss. Last weekend, some changes. Chuck Bound fell from 5th to 7th in points, bypassed by Bliss and Sauter. And now the lights have just come back atop the Lund pace truck, so they are not going to go green this time. They decided to go through the extra speedy dry on the track one more time, so we are not going green. You see the lights are back on atop the safety truck. We talked about Rich Bickle, Glenn, and in light of how far he's come back, this has got to be a great weekend for him because he keeps telling us he's not a road racer.
Well, he's done a great job so far coming back from that early spin, of which he had help. He wanted me to be sure and point that out. Rich's problem right now is he says that the truck is tight in the right-handers and loose in the left-handers, so they had to do a lot of adjusting. His biggest problem is the heat. He got out of the truck, went and just doused himself. Then they put some stuff on the seat. He said the seat is burning up his tail end and his back, so he's got a real problem there. His guys say no, they cannot go. They can't afford to try to stretch it all the way. He's leading the points. He can't take that kind of chance. First opportunity, they're going to top off with fuel. Mike Bliss, Barry Dodson told me that they're still figuring right now. He wanted to know if anybody else said they could. I told him I don't know yet. Will Lynn with the number 3 truck, Jay Sauter, says, well, you know, they thought they could, but since they shortcutted us and made us pitted or did the halftime here 3 laps early, that they don't think that they can go all the way right now. So Ron Hornaday's crowd is still figuring. We haven't had anybody yet tell us that they can make it all the way. Mike Bliss, we checked on him. They did 4 tires and around a bite out and made some tire pressure adjustments, but he says he's going to have to stop also. Let me go check with Hornaday's guys right now and see if they finished calculating. Boy, they had like 6 mathematicians over here doing the math on it, so let me see what I can find out. Nobody here. Here's Fred. Let me ask Fred Grace. Fred, we're curious. You had some calculation going on there, had a lot of help. Do you think you can make it all the way on fuel?
Well, if we got as many cautions as we did in the first half, we'll be real close, but we don't know if we're going to get those cautions. If we don't, we're really gambling about running out, so we're just going to have to play it by ear.
Sounds like the old days, Eli, when you had a buddy out there and you needed a caution, you got him to spin out. That's what they need.
Glenn, I bet you if somebody can make it, you know what? I don't believe they're going to tell you they can.
That's right. And, yeah, crew chiefs never tell the truth, do they, Larry?
We just work in the gray areas. We just work in the gray areas.
How about what Fred Graves has meant to this team? Here's a guy who, I mean, they've had a number of different crew chiefs this year on that Napa truck. And Fred Graves, the man commands batting. I mean, he'd be in the Hall of Fame if he was a baseball player based on the percentage of success he's had this year.
Well, I think what he has meant to this race team, I talked to Dale just earlier this week about it, and he said the biggest thing that Fred has brought to their race team is Ron Hornaday believes in him. If Fred tells him it's raining, Ron's going to go get an umbrella and go outside with it. He just, and I'm not saying Ron hadn't believed in his other crew chiefs because he's won a championship and won a lot of races, but he just has a lot of respect for Fred. Fred has a lot of respect for Ron. They believe in each other, and there's no substitute for that.
Can't beat that. You're exactly right. About set to go green. A quick update again. Glenn, I see you got Barry Dodson with you.
Yep, the brain trust for Mike Bliss. Now you finished your calculations. Can you make it?
I don't know. You know, what kind of got us out in left field was we were supposed to go 42 that time, and which made the second half 39, and now that's out the window. So it's kind of like the first half here. And we got a rabbit up there. We probably do what he does.
So monkey see, monkey do. I like that.
Well, let's see what everybody does. We're getting set to go back to green. Ron Hornaday ahead of Bliss. The 14 truck, Rick Crawford, a super young racer out of Mobile, Alabama, a graduate from the Slim Jim All-Pro Series. Green is in the air from Chris Morgan. We're back at it, lap number 41.
Ron Hornaday getting that normal good restart that he gets everywhere. Off into turn 1.
Now they come to the new section of track. If you're just joining us along the way, this little kink right here that they're going through is what was added from our visit last year, expanding the track from 1.7 to 2.1 miles.
Mike Bliss all over the back of Ron Hornaday's truck. I asked some of the drivers, did this new portion of the racetrack change anything about setup or gearing? And they said, no, it's just another left and another right added to the existing road course.
Hornaday looking back to Bliss, and on the bottom, Bliss looking forward to Hornaday.
Down that backstretch, headed into the left-hander, turn 10, downshifting, Bliss moving to the outside there, taking a look.
They are coming now also to the Gatorade money lap right here. because technically halfway has not been reached because we had to stop short. So this is for the $1,000 Gatorade Front Runner Award as well.
Tell these guys is racing for something right now.
Hornaday and Bliss onto the drag strip.
Ron gets a good run down that front straightaway as he goes through the gearbox.
Cha-ching, $1,000, Ron Hornaday. Gatorade Front Runner Award. Going to be interesting to watch Dorsey Schrader as he works up the field. The 7 there. Well, here comes the 57. That's Doug George, having taken over from Brian Cunningham earlier today. Looks like he's out of brakes.
Look like they are. Yeah, they're having they couldn't get him going and they couldn't get him stopped. Now they're going under the hood and jacking it up.
The leaders now working the back portion of the course on the 1,442-foot straightaway, the back stretch, until they get to that corner right there.
See Sprague making a bid. 4th place gets around Jay Sauter.
Jack, who finished 2nd here a year ago in that Quaker State truck, the 24. So again, not to be surprised that he's up front. A strong run a year back. Sauter the 3, Bickle the 17. That navy blue truck further back, the 55, Dorsey Schrader, the road racing star. He's right behind the 93 of Skinner. There they are. The 1 is Bobby Hamilton. He's in 10th. That's 8th, 9th, 10th right there in order.
Mike Skinner moved back into 7th place after getting off the racetrack right before the halfway point.
Remember that battle right there is for position. Dorsey Schrader, the 55 there, he ran here, obviously not in NASCAR races, but he ran here in 1989, 1990, and 91 in road course events. Skinner around Rich Bickle there in that 93 and 17 battle.
Notice these trucks aren't quite sliding around right now. They've got those 4 fresh tires on them.
Here goes Bobby Hamilton in a bid against Dorsey Schrader. That's 8th and 9th now. Tony Raines in 10th, and that 19 truck right behind. Good battle. That's 8th place on the screen. Hamilton in the 1, Schrader, Dorsey Schrader in the 55.
Hamilton gets the line, passes for the position.
You know, here's a guy passing a noted road racer in Dorsey Schrader, and Bobby Hamilton keeps telling you he's not a road courser. You know where Bobby Hamilton sets up his truck, that number 1 truck? He didn't go to a road course and rent it out. His buddy runs the Gallatin, Tennessee airport. And he took the truck, and yesterday's cars that they had here in the All-Pro Series Coca-Cola Shootout, they took the cars and trucks to the Gallatin, Tennessee airport. And he used the runway and the taxiways and the intersections, and he kind of made up his own road course. He had the 2-way radio hooked up to his helmet, but he wasn't talking to a crew chief. He was talking to his buddy in the control tower who said, Bobby, pull off. I got a Cessna on short final 3 miles out. He needs to land, and Bobby would pull way off into the tulips. The guy would land, and Bobby'd go out and make more laps on the Gallatin, Tennessee airport.
I guess, you know, this place is pretty flat, but what about that guy in the Cessna? What do you think he was thinking when he saw this pickup truck running around?
Probably thought he was landing at Sebring or something, where they also run on an airport. Of course, Bobby Hamilton, a great Winston Cup racer. How tough is it competing against a bunch of guys in a truck, guys you don't race with every week?
It's going to be tough. I mean, these guys don't toy around. They're just as serious doing that stuff. I mean, look at Ron's streak lately, and I mean, just got a lot of good road racers in that division too that have converted over running the round track. So, you know, if we could just make the race and finish somewhere in the top 20, we'd have a pretty good day.
Well, and he's having more than a pretty good day. There he is again, that dark number 1, trying to pass Rich Bickle for 7th if he can get a jump on him. Turn 10 and 11. The long way around for Hamilton to turn 12.
This is a tough place to pass, but he gets the line going into turn 12 there, the final corner, because you get set up to pass them and you run out of corner and it's time to turn back the other direction before you can even clear the truck. But he clears him here, headed on to the front straightaway.
Somewhere Robbie Loomis is smiling right now. the crew chief for Bobby Hamilton on the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. They're going to Watkins Glen soon for the Bud at the Glen, and Bobby's getting road course laps under his belt here, different track, but he's got to be building his confidence level.
Well, even if they're not learning anything that they can apply to the Winston Cup car, that's exactly right. Bobby's just getting that confidence. Hey, I am a road racer. I can run these road courses.
Ron Hornaday is the leader. Mike Bliss is second. Rick Crawford third. Jack Sprague is fourth. Mike Skinner is fifth. Jay Sauter is sixth. There we are back up front as Bliss is staying right with Hornaday.
Staying right with them. They are putting some distance on the third place truck here. Looks like Ron gets off the corner a little bit better than Mike right there and gets a run up that straightaway.
On pit road, Doug George has just taken the Brian Cunningham truck behind the wall. If you're keeping tabs on that machine, they were in 24th spot as we ride with Mike Bliss. And Glenn, I know you can't see much of the track from pit road. Trust me, Mike's doing a heck of a job.
Oh, he is, and I tell you what, he's doing a great job considering how much conversation is going on between he and crew chief Barry Dodson right now. We got a spin out on the course, but they're saying now that they feel like they can make it if they can get a caution. If this turns out to be a full course caution, then they're pretty certain they can make it all the way on fuel.
Well, both trucks have pulled away. That's Dave Resendiz in the 35. You saw Lou Gelati in the 83, that white truck just ahead of him there going beneath the Featherlight Bridge. So both machines continue away at lap number 45, but that man is the winner at Sears Point a year ago, and let's see how much we can see from this view. Well, they'd already gone together and spun. Gelati on the right. Look at Tolsma coming right down the middle, splitting the opening.
On the grass at that.
Yeah. Close quarters racing, lap number 45 as Resendiz with that spin is back to 22nd spot now. Gelati just ahead of him in 21st. You see him lock up the tires?
Did you see right there? And actually what he did, he carried the tire. And what that means, the truck has leaned over so much and he was on the brakes that the tire was actually off the ground. We've seen a lot of pictures taken at Sears Point, Watkins Glen, where you could actually see daylight in the racetrack underneath the tire. That's called carrying the tire through the corners.
Up front, still a great battle for a lead there as Bliss tries and tries. Hard braking by Hornaday. That was the smoke you saw.
He's not ready to relinquish the lead right here.
But watch Hornaday here on the straightaway. It spreads.
Really gets a run up off the corner. Bliss runs in and getting in the corner, but he really gets a run up off that corner. Could be two things. He's got a little bit lower gear, maybe a little better low-end horsepower, or his truck's just getting a better bite up off the corner.
46 laps of 81 complete. We're live in the heartland of America, Heartland Park, Topeka, Kansas. We're coming right at you. And Sega Saturn Systems, and yeah, that's Dave Resendiz. He had problems again. There he is walking back to the pits. Last time by, we brought out a full course caution. Lou Gelati, bango.
Got in there hard, got into the back of Resendiz. Resendiz come around. Gelati continues on. Now, I think Resendiz got it fired there. There you see the motor firing, but I think as he was trying to back it up, he possibly stripped the gears in the transmission, and that's where it ended up staying right there till he pushed it out of the way.
They are going to bring Lou Gelati to the pit lane for a penalty of an undetermined length of time. We should say that when Resendiz got out of the truck, he waited for Gelati to come by and waved the menacing finger at him. Never did try and stop or reach in or anything like that. The trucks were still going, but Dave Resendiz made it perfectly clear to everyone that he was not pleased with Lou Gelati. Gelati is one of the road racers who is here this weekend. As a matter of fact, he's been running a number of races over the course of the weekend here. He drives the SCCA World Challenge Mustangs, among other vehicles. There he is, and Gelati is going to be coming to the pit lane, and he'll be held up for a penalty from NASCAR. We're getting ready to go back to green. A lot of teams electing to make their pit stops. Hornaday, you see, is in. Crawford is the leader, and the green flag is coming out this time by.
They kind of waited to the last minute here to top these trucks off. Again, they just needed a little bit of fuel, but there we go back to racing with Rick Crawford taking the lead. Jay Sauter running second now after this caution.
So Hornaday will lead from lap 24 to 47. Crawford at lap number 48. Meanwhile, we are back to work, and Glenn, you have caught up with what I'm sure is a somewhat displeased Dave Resendiz.
Yeah, he's not too happy about things. And Dave, what happened? When did all that start?
Well, you know, we had to stop twice for gas. We stopped early. We thought we had plenty, but evidently we're not getting the kind of mileage we thought we did. And that put us in the back, you know, and I was just, you know, we had a real good truck. I was just trying to get up front and, you know, trying to get off to a top 5. And everybody was racing pretty good with me. You know, 98 popped off the curb there and got into me, but that was okay. But I don't know, that guy in that 83, he blocked me every way he could. And when he took me out there, getting on the front stretch, he broke the transmission. So, you know, I just hate it for the guys who work real hard. There was a brand new truck, and, you know, I love these road courses, but we'll get a break somewhere along the line.
Well, I hope so. And he had at one point in time, guys, worked his way up into 6th position by my count, and he was hoping he could get back up even further in the field. Tough break today.
Again, Lou Gelati, there he is. You see the NASCAR official right in front of the truck, and he is being held there for an undetermined length of time, and NASCAR will determine when it is best for Gelati to leave the penalty box, if you will. Meanwhile, you've got a rookie leading in Rick Crawford. You've got Jay Sauter, a second-year man behind him in a 3 truck, and then road racing specialist Dorsey Schrader, who is running in 3rd. Now you're riding with Boris Said. Remember, he's back on the racetrack in 27th position, many laps down, but Boris is still out there and running. But this is going to be very much like we talked about in the pre-race, Lara. You got series regulars and a road racing specialist all of a sudden in the hunt for the win.
That's the thing, and you've got Jay Sauter there, who I think surprised everybody with a 3rd place qualifying effort, but maybe not a surprise. He finished in the top 5 here last year, so he's used to running up front here at Topeka.
Yeah, he came home in 5th spot a season ago, exactly. And there's Lou Gelati now, having finally come out of the truck. You see him talking to a NASCAR official, the gentleman with his hand to his ear. That's how you key the radio, if you're curious. The on-off switch for the radio systems that they use at racetracks. The activation switch is on the left ear, and that's what the fellow there is doing. But Gelati now out of the truck, and back up front we go.
Dorsey Schrader, I believe, just ducked in the pits, the 3rd place truck there. He's going to get his splash of fuel under green here. You know, I guess I'm just curious. These guys had a couple opportunities to come in and pit under caution. A lot of them come in with the 1 to go, which actually put them back racing before they was off pit road. And here, 2 laps after being back racing, Dorsey Schrader's on pit road.
From the St. Louis area, Dorsey Schrader. Glenn Jarrett.
He is coming in for a splash of gas, and Larry on the lap before that, Tony Raines, who was running up in the top 10, did the very same thing. But I guess their thinking is they weren't prepared to do it the first time, so they might as well do it now like they did earlier, short pit the thing, and then hope they can catch a caution, make up a little track position on some of the cars or trucks, but there's still a lot of guys that stopped under that caution are going to be way ahead of the game.
If you're curious about Dorsey Schrader, as you see the Napa scoring and timing rundown across the top of the screen. At Napa, we keep America running. Dorsey Schrader is driving for Tom Gloy Motorsports. That's the same team that fielded a truck for Ron Barfield back at Bristol Motor Speedway earlier in the year in June. There they are. When Barfield gets in the truck, it's kind of a friendly deal between Bill Elliott, who is basically training Barfield, if you will, and Tom Gloy. They're buddies from way back, and Bill said, yeah, I don't mind helping Tom out with a driver, and Barfield get some good experience. But here on the road course, they went with Dorsey.
Well, I think that was a good move. You know, we used Dorsey Schrader back at Watkins Glen in 1992 after Davey got hurt at Pocono after flipping 11 times, and he was a big help to us and done us a good job. It was a little bit like a fish out of water when it come time to pitch. You know, he wasn't exactly what was going on there, but he did us a great job on the racetrack.
And that is Dorsey Schrader having made his pit stop for fuel out there running on the speedway again, right behind Rick Corelli in the Remax truck. Haven't talked much about Corelli. He's in 17th, a lap down at this stage of the day. We're at lap 51, still 30 laps to go in this 81 lap event. Tammy Jo Kirk, then Corelli, then Dorsey Schrader. Cammy Joe and Corelli and Schrader are 15th, 16th, and 17th. Tolsma, the 61, is running in 18th. Back up front, there's the spread between Hornaday in the 16 truck and Mike Bliss in the 2.
Just remember, these was 2 of the trucks that did pit for fuel when they got the 1 to go. Stacy Compton, the 4th place truck there. The top 4 trucks, by my calculations, are the 4 that have not pitted for fuel.
All right, Crawford, Sauter, Bob Keselowski, and Stacy Compton. 3rd truck in your picture on the right, that's Boris Said. He is many laps down after a stay behind the wall. There's Boris. Riding with him now and gives us a good view of the trucks battling for the lead ahead of him.
This has got to make him feel good right here. I know he's 4 laps down. He pretty much is out of contention for the win, but to show that he can run up front, he showed it in the first part of the race before problems. It's just a shame because I know he had high hopes that maybe that first truck win would come here today at Topeka.
We are live at Heartland Park Topeka. You see 24th place, 65 Robe, it says. If you're joining us along the way, that is Mark Robe, the dirt tracker, who took over for Rob Morgan, who was overcome by heat earlier in the day. Doug George also having come in 57, replacing Brian Cunningham, who also was overcome by heat. He's been bothered by a bit of a flu bug this weekend. So those driver changes, Doug George in the 57 truck, Mark Robe in the 65. There's the birthday boy, Rick Crawford, celebrating here this weekend and a birthday yesterday.
Eli, we've talked a lot about the heat and the drivers having to be replaced with substitute drivers. You know, it is hot here. We've talked about that several times. But there's some other things that contribute to this. Here at a road course, and there the hood is blown up
Butch Miller.
on Butch Miller's truck. Butch certainly having a rough weekend. This is a backup truck. He crashed yesterday morning before qualifying and had to use a provisional to start the race, and his troubles continue as the hood is up, and he's going to have to come in and either take it off or try to fasten it back down.
That is the Walker Evans-owned truck. Actually, he's making pretty good time for the fact he can't see.
He's peeping through that little bitty hole underneath the windshield there.
He had just made a pit stop. He is in 32nd because he had made his pit stop at lap number 52.
As a crew chief, there's 2 of the most embarrassing things that can happen to you. One's the hood blowing open or the tires flying off without the lug nuts being tight.
Yeah, we've seen that happen over the years with a number of teams. Butch Miller. He ran here in '85 in the American Speed Association, the ASA race, finished 8th after starting 10th. He started 5th here a year ago, but finished 19th because of problems. And like you say, this is one of those weekends he just shouldn't have even gotten out of bed. Jay Sauter, the black truck right there, having been bypassed by Boris Said, but Jay is still in 2nd. Boris still many laps down. What are they saying about Sauter's run? They got to be tickled, Glenn.
Oh, they are, and I'm going to ask Will Lind. He told me he didn't think he could make it. They had the chance to pit. He's got a little bit of a gambler's grin on his face. Why didn't you come in and take advantage of that?
I've been working with a bunch of gamblers for a long time here, so I think we probably had a 5th or 6th place truck if we'd have stayed out. And it's going to be close. Going to go for it.
I like that. Not at all afraid to roll the dice. That's unusual for these guys, but like he says, this way they might have a chance to win. Otherwise, they do not.
And that was Will Lind, who is the crew chief there for that number 3 bunch, the team manager. They work at a shop not far from where you are up there in Welcome, North Carolina, Larry McReynolds, part of that Richard Childress complex. What have they had to do here? We've been stopping under green for fuel. We haven't had competition yellows for much of this season in NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series racing. Has that caused extra work for the fellas in the Childress shop?
Well, actually what we did, Mike Moore, who works on the Goodwrench Winston Cup team, we sent him down to the truck team here several weeks ago. I think they feel like they got beat really bad, not on necessarily fuel mileage at Milwaukee, but wasn't able to pick up the amount of fuel that they thought they should have been picking up. So Mike went down there and worked with them with their fuel cells. Again, NASCAR regulates how much fuel our cells can hold, and it's roughly 22 gallons. Mike went down there and worked with him, and they feel like they're picking up all the fuel that they should. And that's a big task at a road course because you're slinging back left and right. And sometimes you won't pick all the fuel up. So unlike an oval, it becomes even a harder task at the road courses.
How about that battle? 7th, 8th, and 9th. You're watching Jack Sprague in the 24, the green and white truck. Rich Bickle in the 17. That's Mike Skinner right there on your screen. 7th, 8th, and 9th with Joe Rutland back in the picture in 10th. And old Jack's still smoking those brakes for all they're worth.
He's still getting everything he can get down in the corners. Rich Bickle and Mike Skinner puts a lot of pressure on him. You know, right now Sauter's running in second. He has about a 12-second lead on Mike Bliss. Again, Mike is one of the first trucks that's running fourth right now that has pitted for fuel. So, you know, he's going to have to think about maybe if they don't think they can make it conserving a little bit of fuel, and that's hard to do at a road course.
A lot of strategy to play out. We're at lap number 55 of 81. The mid stages of the Lund Look 275, and it's all live on TNN. Welcome back, Heartland Park, Topeka, Kansas. That powder blue truck number 14. That is Rick Crawford. He is about to put Boris Said yet another lap down. Crawford is the race leader. Took over at lap 48. We're now at lap 56. Of course, the pit stop sequencing handed the lead to Crawford, although he's been in the top 5 all day. The black truck, the Good Wrench colors, Jay Sauter, he is running second. Bob Keselowski is third. Hornaday fourth. Sprague is fifth. Bickle is sixth. Skinner is seventh. Where in the world is Mike Bliss? Well, Mike Bliss has had a bad lap. There he is, now running in 9th position. And he had some problems. Let's look at it first from Ron Hornaday's view.
Going off into turn 8, what they call the gator pit there. He gets off the racetrack. Hornaday just kind of followed him off there.
Now, riding with Bliss himself, here's another problem.
Downshifts, getting into the corner there. Just looked like the truck wanted to tail in with him right there. Maybe something broke, and I think we are getting maybe a report that something had broke on the truck.
Glenn, have you talked to Barry Dodson? What is he saying? Yeah, good.
We'll ask him right now, and he's talking with Mike. He told me that when he ran off the course there, he thought that he had broken something. Where he's talking with him right now. We'll see if we can find out exactly what it is. They think it might be the sway bar. Barry, you got any idea what it broke?
I don't know, either a shock or the rear sway bar. It said all he did was run off the track and run back on, you know. I don't know. If we get a caution, we'll try to fix it. It was perfect till then, so I don't know.
Well, that puts the fuel mileage question out the window anyway, but they did have an awfully good truck. They're a little bit disappointed down here, and rightfully so.
So, tough break for Mike Bliss. Meanwhile, the combination of Rick Crawford and crew chief Roland Walatica right now on top of the world as they are leading with that truck in second. That's Jay Sauter. Haven't talked much of Bob Keselowski, but he is running in third, carrying one of our in-truck cameras today. Keselowski and the Mopar team in a solid third place right now, although a goodly distance back. There he is, just now going into the new section of the course. Again, not a noted road racer, but he's doing quite well.
He's having a heck of a run here today in that Mopar truck. And you know what could have happened with Bliss? I think at one of those times that he got off the racetrack, he went across the rumple strips too, and that could have certainly bent some part of the suspension, maybe damaged a shock, and that could be what his troubles is from.
Rick Crawford now with Sauter right behind him. That is the battle for the lead. And this rookie getting himself a lot of attention this year, Glenn. Kenny Irwin's won some races, but Crawford's done himself awfully proud.
Oh, he has. He's a great race driver. Eli's had a lot of experience, and he ran here in the Slim Jim All Pro Series last year. I went down and asked Roland Walatica, his crew chief, if he can make it. He said, "No way. We have to stop." Now, and meanwhile, Will Lynn has been admonishing Jay Sauter, begging him, Jay, save fuel, save fuel. We're going to try to stretch it. So 14 Crawford will have to stop, as Will Lynn told us. They're going to try to make it.
You might have just gotten a quick look at Crawford sticking his hand out the window of his truck. He was trying to redirect some air into the driver's seat area to try and cool himself down. There is the leader of the race. Rick Crawford has to stop for fuel. Jay Sauter right behind him. Then a goodly distance back to what's been a pretty good third place battle now, as Skinner and Keselowski had been battling. Skinner turned in the fastest lap of the day by a leader back on the 10th lap of the afternoon. There you see the numbers that he posted way back shortly after we began. Middle to late stages of the event. We saw Doug George's truck smoking before, and Rich Bickle also, Larry.
He's running in 8th position here in the new part of the racetrack. He goes off in the left-hander there. Oh, he locked that left front up, just locked it up and slid the tire a little bit, just trying to get all he can, getting down in the corner to make as much time around this racetrack as he can.
Running it down for you, Rick Crawford, the leader. Jay Sauter in second. You're riding with the third place man, Bob Keselowski. Looking back to Hornaday in fourth. Jack Sprague in the green truck right there in fifth. You've got Skinner in sixth, Joe Ruttman in seventh. You know, I got to comment again, there's Sprague still bubbling the smoke off of those brakes, but who are we to say? It's obviously working for the man. He's a strong fifth.
He's not losing ground by doing it. You know, and I'll say in the last 5 to 10 laps, Sauter and Crawford, they're still enjoying about a 12 to 13 second lead on those cars, on those trucks.
There is Sprague running in fifth, Skinner right there in sixth. Taking you further back, you've got Ruttman in seventh, Rich Bickle eighth, Tony Raines is ninth. And how about Terry Cook? We haven't talked much about Terry, but he started back in 30th position and has worked himself up towards the front. MCI providing you NASCAR timing and scoring here at Heartland Park in Topeka, Kansas. There's Joe Ruttman.
Keselowski can sure be proud of himself because he's holding off a tough road racer right there in Ron Hornaday.
Sure is. Hornaday's kind of pacing himself, I think. He ran a smart race a weekend ago at Colorado National. Let everybody else take off. He saved his tires, as we talked earlier, tire management. Here now, for the longest while, he's not really been hanging with the leaders, but he still might be. Oh, and we had just talked about Terry Cook, who was running in 10th, and now he throws the gutter ball. Caution on the speedway. Caution for the Pro Bowlers Association truck. He goes off in turn one. Terry Cook, our 6th caution of the day at lap number 63. That's a heartbreaker.
It really was. He was having a good run. He had actually been off the racetrack a little earlier and had worked his way back up to 9th position, or up close to the top 10. Rick Crawford and Jay Sauter did not want to see this caution flag.
So caution on the speedway for the 6th time. We're at Heartland Park, Topeka, Kansas, the mid stages of the race. The Lund Look 275. We are live on TNN Motorsports, wherever you are across the country. Hope you're having a great afternoon. Eli Gold, Larry McReynolds, Glenn Jarrett is on the pit lane. And in the garage area, there's Mike Bliss, back in 12th spot now after we heard the less than scientific answer of he ran off the course and broke something, but he's right there in the top dozen, Glenn.
Yeah, and they're going to bring him in, Eli. They're going to try to find out exactly what he did break. They've got an extra shock absorber. They think it's either a shock or a sway bar, rear sway bar. And I have an idea, Larry. They've got the tools out here. It looks to me like they're just going to unhook the rear sway bar if that's the case. So I'm sure they're hopeful that that is it. But they've got the pieces out here. They're ready for Mike whenever he comes in. Meanwhile, next door to me, Rich Bickle's crew is ready. They're going to put some fuel in him. They don't think that they got enough when he splashed the gas and go a while ago. Also, being the points leader, they're just simply not going to take a chance. In the 3 pit of Jay Sauter, they are still talking it over. They haven't decided to pit. Meanwhile, Rick Crawford, his guys put out the pit board on the last lap. We're ready for him to pit, but he didn't come down pit road, so I don't know what the deal is there. They have said he couldn't make it. Meanwhile, Bliss getting ready to come in right now.
And what does unhooking the rear sway bar do from the driver's standpoint, Larry Mack?
Well, the truck probably won't turn as good off the corner now, but if there's something on a part of the rear sway bar that's broke, that would be the thing that would be the best for them, because there's a lot of trucks here probably not running rear sway bars, but the thing about it, you kind of adjust your rear springs. You'll run softer rear springs with the rear sway bar, so it could make the truck where it don't turn as good, but he has fallen back anyhow. And there you see Rick Crawford. He's on pit road, and Keselowski as well. So Jay Sauter, the 3 truck, has elected to stay out and go for it.
So this is going to cost him a good bit of distance, certainly. Brian Reffner, the 66, is in. There's Keselowski in the white and black Dodge with whom you're riding right now. Meanwhile, the field will be getting the green. Boris Said is back in for service. Mark Robe comes in for fuel, but this is out on the racetrack, and the green is in the air for the race leader, Jay Sauter, who'll take over now at lap number 65. Let's go to pit road.
Okay, guys, Rich Bickle came in, and not only did he get fuel, they absolutely doused him with ice water. Remember, I told you he was burning up in there. You see the work going on under Mike Bliss's truck now. They have diagnosed the problem. It is a broken left rear shock, so they'll be able to fix that. They may be able to get him back out in time for him to make up some of those positions he lost. Because they replaced that shock, he's good to go.
It's a minute and a half or so to run this course, so you may not even lose a lap.
They could, if they've got the tubes laid out, got extra nuts and shock bushings and things, and everything just goes just right. You don't drop the nut, which sometimes hard to do when you're in a hurry. They could get it changed and get back out there.
There's Randy Tolsma. He had a good run going, but now finds himself spun off the course, and that's too bad. He was in 13th position, was the Idaho native. But this is the battle for the lead. Jay Sauter. He was a 5th place finisher here a year ago against road racing ace Ron Hornaday, who wants his 4th victory in succession. There's Kenny Irwin with problems. He's 19th on the track. Kenny Irwin spins as he was coming to that right-hander setting up for the main straightaway. Kenny Irwin from Homestead and Texas, where he won, to off the course in Kansas.
Eli, you talked earlier about how it looked like Ron Hornaday had kind of gotten into a pace. I think it's played right into Ron's strategy. He knew that he couldn't make up 12 seconds on the racetrack to those guys that hadn't pitted unless a caution come out. So he was saving his tires, and there you see Jack Sprague all over the rear bumper of Hornaday. So we got a good battle here for 2nd place as well as the lead.
You got 93 Skinner, 80 Ruttman. They're all battling for the top spot. Meanwhile, we told you Randy Tolsma had spun. You saw his truck quickly. He's in the 61.
Through the right-hander there. It looked like maybe somebody got off the racetrack in front of him, and he just kind of drove the corner there and almost saved it. Got those wheels cut to the right, but she just come on around.
And we showed you Kenny Irwin. He was just setting up for that turn, and it just never did turn. It's a little kink to the left there, and the Ray Bestis truck just kept on going straight.
But see how far he's off the racetrack. There's a lot of runoff room here at Topeka, so that'll keep you out of trouble if you do get off the racetrack.
Meanwhile, the heat is now getting to even the biggest of men. Rich Bickle has a problem on pit road, Glenn.
Yes, he does, and they got a pretty big guy to put in there. That's the back of Dave Resendez we're looking at. We just talked to Dave a while ago. He is going to get in for Bickle. Bickle is cooked. He said, guys, I'm done. You got to get me out of here. As I said, he came in. The guys told me here he had enough gas in the truck. He just couldn't make it the rest of the way himself, so they're going to put Dave Resendez in the truck for him. That's the very first opportunity.
So Bickle, meanwhile, battling on the racetrack. He is in 16th spot right there in that number 17 truck, battling with Mike Bliss. Doug George already taken over from Brian Cunningham today. Mark Robe having taken over from Rob Morgan. Dave Resendez about to take over for Rich Bickle.
Eli, we started talking about this a little bit earlier. Again, we've mentioned many times how hot it is here, and I was going to tell you, on a road course, even though there is a couple long straightaway, you just don't get a lot of air into the truck. And in these 9-to-1 motors, they just burn hotter anyhow, have that raw fuel burning in the exhaust. And one thing we also hadn't talked about is the Jericho transmission with all the shifting generates a lot of heat, and that's right there to the right-hand side of that driver. So you throw all those things together along with the weather, that's the reason these guys are having a tough time here today.
And you'll talk to different drivers, but most will tell you they're shifting 11 or 12 times per lap, some even a couple of times more. Mike Skinner, the 93, he's in 4th. The leader is 3 Sauter, 16 Hornaday, 24 Sprague. They are all tied together, and so is the 1 truck right behind the 80 of Ruttman. There's the 1, that's Bobby Hamilton. He's in position. Those 7 are all tied together going for the top 7 spots. Then you've got some lap trucks before you get back to Jimmy Hensley in 8th. And Mike Wallace having a good run today. I haven't talked much about Mikey. He is running in the 9th spot. Tammy Jo Kirk, who started 26th, is now running in 10th. And you remember Tammy Jo made an unscheduled pit stop back at lap number 3, and then has just been thrashing through the day, stopped at lap number 17, but she is now running in the top 10, swapping that spot around with Rick Corelli. So some good showings here today in the first of 3 road course events for the series in '97.
Jay Sauter actually putting a little distance on these trucks right here. Again, the question is, can he run 13 more laps on the fuel load that he has, and will his truck stay under him for those 13 laps?
We'll all find out. For those of you who are tuning in for the scheduled showing of Shade Tree Mechanic, the coverage of the Lund Look 275 going a bit long today, so Shade Tree Mechanic will not be seen this afternoon. For those of you tuning in for that, we apologize, but we invite you to put the clicker down and stick around with us here for the finish of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race from Heartland Park in Topeka, Kansas. Back to pit road, Glenn Jarrett.
Well, we're talking about Jay Sauter, and Will Lynn is literally begging him to slow down, save fuel. They told him it doesn't matter how fast you go, we've got to save fuel to finish. But Larry, if you're a race driver and you're looking in the mirror, you got Hornaday and Sprague and Skinner and Dorsey Schrader and Joe Ruttman right up behind you. Man, it's hard to slow down.
It really is. And, you know, really the only thing that Jay can do to conserve fuel is just maybe back off a little earlier getting in the corner, get back to the gas a little later. In other words, keep the butterflies on that carburetor closed as much as possible. But when you got a man named Hornaday plus the rest of those guys in your rear view mirror, it's hard to stay off the gas.
Trying to force yourself sometimes, though, as we are now just 12 laps from the finish. The Lund Look 275 down to its finishing laps. Back to Kansas in a moment. There's the race leader, Jay Sauter. Took the top spot at lap number 65. And there's Rich Bickle. What's that smoke coming down from the middle of the truck there, Larry?
You see it's coming from the middle, and I think it's at the rear of the truck, and we even had a report that he maybe had a gear that was burning up, and it's going to be tough to nurse that thing for 10 more laps. Even though the gear is in the rear end, which is in the rear of the truck, that's still just magnifying the heat in that truck, and that could be part of the heat problem he's been experiencing. Glenn, what are they saying in the 17 pits?
They're going to bring him in, Larry. He definitely has a rear gearing problem. The rear end's burned out of it. When he came by last time and I saw the smoke, about 30 seconds later we got the whiff of that awful telltale odor. You smelled it before. It's something you don't want to smell, but the rear end is burned up on the thing.
Now, they never did make the driver change, right, Glenn?
No, they haven't yet, and here he comes. In fact, we're going to have to get out of the way. He's coming in behind us here, kind of fooled us. Now they say, well, at first we got a report that he was out of gas, but the truck's still running. Here's Rich pulling up right. Hey, it's curb service, man. He pulled right up to me, but I don't think he wants to talk right now.
No, Rich again complaining of heat earlier, and they had Dave Resendiz ready to step in, and they will make that driver change should that Sears Die-Hard truck be able to get back. You see Resendiz there at the front of the truck. You just saw a brief glimpse of that green and yellow arm that is attached to Dave Resendiz, and he will come in should the truck be able to continue.
Yeah, 9 laps to go. Figure that's about probably 13, 14 minutes. They could get the gear changed, and of course they're leading the points, but boy, what a difference this could make in the points, because the 3 guys behind him, Sprague, Ruttman, and Hornaday, are all running in the top 5 right now, so what a difference that could make.
Of course, the point spread coming in was fairly comfortable, 102 over Jack Sprague, down to 211 over Ron Hornaday, so it is certainly a bit of breathing room, but you don't want to give anything up. I think one of the most remarkable stats going in this stretch where Hornaday in the 16 has won 3 in a row and 4 of the last 5, Bickle only lost 6 points of his lead in relation to himself and Hornaday, because the one race Hornaday didn't win, he had a disastrous run up in Nazareth, and Bickle is always so consistent.
Well, and that's it. He's been in the top 5, and even though he's only beat Ron 1 time, that was a time that he had a good top 5 finish. There you see Skinner getting out of shape there, racing with Ruttman, coming into turn 12 right there. Ruttman takes the position away from Mike. Mike not ready to give it up. Dorsey Schrader moving to the inside of Skinner.
And Dorsey is for position right there also. He's on the lead lap, moving up into the 6th spot. Meanwhile, in the Rich Bickle pit area, that is, well, that's rear end grease that just has been coming right down. Boy, that's hot to deal with too.
You see this right here, right there, that bar above those guys? We talked about it earlier. That's the rear sway bar on the car. It looks a lot like a front sway bar, but that's the rear sway bar, and that's possibly what we had talked about Mike Bliss having problems. This is it. This is it right here, the rear sway bar. That's it right there, and that's what we thought maybe Mike Bliss had a problem with, but obviously it was a shot.
Meanwhile, Jimmy Hensley on the racetrack. Haven't talked much of him lately. He started 31st, and Jimmy is now running in the 8th spot, the pride of Horse Pasture, Virginia, which is just outside of Martinsville. Great battle there. Schrader in the 55, Dorsey Schrader that is, and Mike Skinner in the 93. Up front, Jay Sauter still showing the way. And he's got himself a fairly comfortable edge at this stage of the afternoon within shouting distance of the finish. That's Skinner in the 93, but let's stay with this one for a moment. Sprague and Ruttman. Joe was our pole sitter today, started on the Busch pole. And again, hard on the brakes. Rich Bickle now out of his truck. Okay, he is, we are told, but obviously totally spent. Glenn?
Yes, he is, Eli. He's just trying to cool off right now. I asked him if he were okay. He said, yeah, I'm okay. He said, I've never been this hot in my life. Taking his shoes off, his feet were burning. His big concern right now is that he didn't blister his back. He said it's okay to talk to him because he doesn't have much time to recover getting to Indianapolis. Let's hope that back doesn't blister, buddy.
Well, I didn't hear what you said, but I don't know what went wrong with the truck, but that seat had to be 250 degrees. I've never fell out of a vehicle in my life for 21 years, and at the half, I mean, my butt's blistered so bad I can't sit, and I don't know why there's so much heat transferring up through that seat, but my God, when the air hose was blowing on me, it felt like it was 150, so we got something we got to work on there.
Well, I'm glad you're okay, Rich, and like I said, guys, the big concern now, he's the points leader. Going to Indianapolis, will he be able to go the whole way because he's only got 4 days to recover?
Right, they run there on Thursday at Raceway Park in Indianapolis, so chance for Rich Bickle to have to heal in a hurry. Jay Sauter, the leader. Here comes second place, Ron Hornaday. Then the green truck, Sprague and Ruttman. That's third and fourth. Mike Skinner is fifth. Dorsey Schrader, the first of the road racing specialists. He's sixth. Super run for Bobby Hamilton in seventh. Jimmy Hensley is eighth. Mike Wallace ninth. Rick Corelli is 10th. Rick Crawford now back in 11th. Tony Raines is 12th. Tammy Jo Kirk 13th. Stacy Compton 14th. Bob Keselowski 15th. 16th is Randy Tolsma. Mike Bliss is running in 17th. And through the heat of the day, Kenny Irwin running in 18th with Brian Reffner 19th. Chuck Bound 20th. Rich Bickle now in the garage 21st. And then everybody else who is already in the garage area behind through the 34 who started today's Lund Look 275. We're closing in on the finish. Welcome back, everyone, to Heartland Park, Topeka, Kansas. 2.4 seconds the advantage from that truck, the number 3, to that one, the number 16 on the battle behind. It is Jay Sauter who leads. 16 Hornaday is second. 24 Sprague is third. 80 Joe Ruttman, he runs fourth. And then that orangish red truck, the number 93, is Mike Skinner. He is running in fifth as we're down to just the final 4 laps here at Heartland Park in Topeka, Kansas. This is going to be a battle right here for second, third, and fourth. And there's Sauter, and there's what 2 1/4 seconds translates to on this racetrack.
A lot of ground, you know. Hornaday has not closed up at all on Sauter. If anything, Sauter's put a little distance on him, but I keep iterating. The question is, can Sauter make it to the end here with 3 laps to go?
He finished fourth a weekend ago, Sauter did, in Colorado. He was second at Milwaukee, third at Bristol. We told you he won in Loudon early in the year. Jay was third at Tucson, even right out of the box at the stop in Orlando at Walt Disney World. He was fourth, Sauter was.
One thing these guys have really started to work on with the Goodrich truck is there you see Sprague going to the outside of Hornaday.
Boy, it just blew right by him.
That's a pass
and so
for
does
second
Ruttman.
place. Ruttman too. And
Oh,
Sprague's
and there goes
off the
Sprague,
racetrack.
and there goes Ruttman.
Hornaday and Ruttman racing hard there.
Boy, that's a good battle.
exactly what happened. It's just like maybe Sprague actually caught Hornaday asleep a little bit there, and then Ruttman just followed.
Now, of course,
he's getting up off the corners.
Remember, the area that Sprague went off the track was that gator pit, Larry, that you talked about earlier, and that should be a 15-second penalty. And we'll verify that and make sure we had the right spot, but that was that straightaway. Let's watch it again. Where everybody starts turning, Sprague is going to go straight.
It's a left-hand turn into turn 8 right there, and Sprague went to make the turn right there, and he had actually made the turn but didn't quite make it all the way down to the next turn, which is a left-hander, and he did make up quite a bit of ground right there.
Yeah, and that is the gator pit, and that is a 15-second penalty, and his number has been posted on the black flag board. He either needs to drop back behind the 16 on the track or come in for a stop-and-go 15-second penalty, more than a stop-and-go. But that is how the rule book reads. That was one of the areas that you diagrammed for us at the start of the day.
Yeah, I didn't know if they was going to call it or not, because he had made the left-hander to some degree, but he didn't quite complete the corner. And right here, of course, if they have posted him, that would put Joe Ruttman in second place, and he's having to contend with Jack Sprague. Meanwhile, Jay Saunders just continue to pull away. When they get the next time by, that will be the white flag, which will be 1 to go.
Hard on the brakes. No move to the pit lane. Now back onto the drag strip. The front two, Sauter, Sprague, Ruttman, Hornaday. Again, Sprague's situation yet to be clarified as he went straight from turn 7 to turn 9.
Jay got about 9 more corners, just needs to be smooth here. There you see Ruttman moving to the inside. Sprague shuts the door as they come out of the right-hander there. This again is the new part of the racetrack.
NASCAR has just confirmed on the radio that they will, because we only have a lap to go, they will assess a 15-second penalty to the 24 truck at the end of the event. So wherever Jack Sprague comes across the line, they will then move him back 15 seconds, and he may only lose a couple or 3 positions as spread out as some of these spots are right now. But that means now
Sauter's out of fuel.
Sauter is out of fuel. Sauter is out of fuel, the race leader. Sauter is out of fuel, and that means Ruttman is now the leader. Remember, Sprague is going to get a penalty, so the 80 truck is now the leader. There he is, Joe Ruttman.
Eli, he come up about 3 or 4 corners short.
Here they come back to the straightaway, and there is Jay Sauter in sight of his second victory. Will Lind can't believe it, the team manager. They rolled the bones. It came up snake eyes. Joe Ruttman coming to the stripe from wire to wire. Checkered flag. Joe Ruttman wins the Lund Look 275. And Joe Ruttman led for just half of that final lap, not even that much. And he picks up the victory, ending Hornaday's streak at 3 victories in a row. What a remarkable finish. No guts, no glory. You got to try to stretch it, and Sauter came up just a bit shy.
I mean, they had a good truck, Eli, and, you know, they felt like they could make it, and all it could have been is just a little bit, one more caution lap or just saving fuel just somewhere. And of course the truck's not even running right there, and how disappointing that is for the Richard Childress race team there.
Oh man, Randy Goss and the fellas picking up the Plastic Coat Winning Finish Award. It goes to the winning crew each and every weekend. Plastic Coat, the official spray paint of NASCAR, proud to present that Winning Finish Award and the $1,000 check that goes with it. So congratulations to Randy Goss, the LCI team, and poor old Jay Sauter. Do you believe that? He was within a third of a lap of his second win of the year, and the 76 Racing Fuel ran out. We'll be heading to Victory Lane. Joe Ruttman, the winner of the Lund Look 275. We'll be right back. Well, he led the first 4 laps and the final third, Glenn Jarrett. Let's go to our General Motors Victory Lane celebration.
Well, Joe, sometimes it's not always the fastest horse, but the one that saves its oats for the end. Boy, you just really outsmarted him. Fuel mileage got you back in victory lane. Had a great truck.
This is a guy right here, Randy Goss. We can take a shot at this. This is the guy here. This is the guy that makes a difference in the Roush team and his Ford F-150 LCI, I think is what it is this time. So everybody sign up quick, make long distance calls. We're working on next year, okay?
You got, this is your second victory of the year. You're referring to back, you won the season opener back at Disney World. Been a long time between victories, but it's not like you haven't been competitive. Things just didn't work out for you until today.
Well, that's the thing, you know, the Roush racing bunch, and guys, we're from Livonia, not from North Carolina. We're the northern bunch, and these guys are awesome. I don't want to mention one because there's way too many of them, but that's what makes a difference. You know, Tom built the motor, and where is Mr. Gant? Get over here, Mr. Gant. This had a lot to do with our fuel economy right here. This man here builds the motors for even the Winston Cup stuff as well. So I let him experiment on the Cup stuff, and then he builds the good stuff for me.
I gotta have one more question. What did you think when you caught up with Sauter and realized he was out of fuel?
I don't. He looked like he was pushing right at first, and I thought, well, maybe I can interchange him. But then Rich said over the radio he must be out of gas, so keep pedaling, you know. So we pedal as hard as we could.
And he pedaled right into victory lane. We're going to let these guys go celebrate. Eli?
A fine job for our bush pole sitter, Joe Ruttman, and the LCI Ford. Our Mopar high performer of the event is Jimmy Hensley, who started 31st and finished 7th. And there is old Jay Sauter. They gave him a little fuel to fire it up, and on around he comes, and had victory in his sights just a third of a lap away. But how about old Jimmy Hensley? A great finish for him today. Jack Sprague with that 15-second penalty, by the way, will come home in 13th if you're following his exploits today. They did assess the 15-second penalty at day's end, and that should place him around 13th unofficially in the rundown. But quite a race, Larry McReynolds.
Well, it really was, and you know, we talked about it the entire event. I know the fans maybe got tired of hearing about it, but the fuel mileage we felt like was going to play a role in it. Obviously it did. I hate it for Will Lynn. Those guys on the Goodwrench team come up just a little bit short. And how about Dorsey Schrader? Finishes 3rd today. Quite a run for him. Bobby Hamilton said he's not a road racer. He comes up 5th. So a lot of good runs for guys that don't think they was road racers today.
They did fine. Tammy Jo Kirk after a couple of early pit stops. Chuck Bound, who had some problems early, comes home with a 20th place finish today. You see how everything shakes down. Sauter comes home in 16th. That's where they place Jay Sauter with his problems of this afternoon. And on down the line, Lance Norick in 34th spot is the final finisher there. A big thank you to all of our crew that's out there around this course. You know, we talk about the heat today. Well, our camera guys who have been out there baking all weekend, a big thank you for hanging out there and giving us the pictures you have, and our congratulations to the LCI team. Great job for Joe Ruttman. He wins the Bush Pole and comes home with his 2nd victory of 1997. Larry McReynolds has been up here in the booth. Best of luck at the Brickyard next weekend.
Thank you, Eli.
Glenn Jarrett down on the pit lane and in the garage area. I'm Eli Gold. Thanks so much for joining us. We have been live all weekend long in the heartland of American motorsports. From Heartland Park, Topeka, so long from all of us at TNN Motorsports.